This episode of 2.5 Geeks is brought to you by Data Robotics Drobo. You may be familiar with Drobo for the home user, but for small to medium-sized companies, check out drobo.com/business for simple, sophisticated storage solutions for the enterprise.
Coming up in 2.5 Geeks, we'll be talking about a Sandy Bridge notebook, a dual GPU graphics card, our kick-ass contest, and more.
The bar has been set wicked fast. It rocked in the benchmarks. We're going to up the ante a little bit.
Processing power, maybe. I kind of understand this. Welcome to 2.5 Geeks. I'm Ayaz Akhtar alongside Dave Aldavilla and Marco Chiappetta from Hot Hardware. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Just great.
Thank you. Yes.
Look at you
Did
guys.
you?
That's great. Let's talk about some actual hardware, shall we? Let's talk about maybe, I don't know, a Sandy Bridge notebook from Asus. What do you say, Dave?
Out of the blue, you just pulled that right thin air.
You know, I have these vague ideas what we should talk about.
You're good. So yeah, actually taking a look at this puppy right now. Here it is. I'm going to bring it into the frame. It's going to take most of the frame. And this is the Asus K53E. And it's got a dual-core Sandy Bridge processor under the hood. The Core i5 2520QM, which is a 2.53 gigahertz dual-core Sandy Bridge processor with integrated Intel graphics HD 3000, the graphics core in the chip. And boy, I tell you, it's a significant improvement in the integrated Intel only notebook architecture of days gone by, like Arendelle and the architectures before Sandy Bridge.
Now, would you have noticed right away that there seems something faster about this machine, or did it just, for regular tasks, just seem like, it's still good? Or,
yeah. Well, blown away is tough to do for jaded, industry guys like us. But I'd say, impressive would be a good word to go with the technology. This SKU will drop in the $900 to $1,000 price range, fully loaded. 640 gig hard drive, 6 gig of RAM. Really nice 15.6-inch display. Really nice machine with really good multimedia horsepower under the hood that, an integrated solution historically just didn't bring from Intel. Marco and I recall back to a dinner we had with Intel in New York City back in the Arendelle launch. And one of the product managers for the mobile platforms in Intel was asking us, what do you think is, a good experience in a notebook? What's good enough from a multimedia standpoint to, for the average, 90% of the market. Because let's face it, not everybody's going to be doing, desktop replacement gaming machines. And it's going to be most mainstream folks are somewhere, south of that sort of power requirement. And the answer was, we want to do some definitely HD video, a little bit of light duty gaming. And Arendelle back then didn't quite bring it. And you saw solutions from guys like NVIDIA, and the other discrete manufacturers, graphics chip manufacturers, doing things like, to augment the platform as they always have, Optimus from NVIDIA and all that good stuff. It's starting to feel like with Sandy Bridge, you don't need that now. And I'm going to say 90%, maybe 85% of the mainstream market, the experience on this from a multimedia, gaming, and, HD video playback perspective is in fact good enough now.
Well, what if you didn't want to do just this little Sandy Bridge graphics? What if you wanted to have 2 GPUs in your machine? Marco, would you happen to have something available, maybe an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 590?
He's clairvoyant today.
Serious power.
Let me reach into my pile of video cards here. So a couple of weeks back, we talked about the 6990 from AMD.
I'm making the buzz.
Is it doing it? Is it buzzing? No.
Normally the graphics cards, for those who don't know what we're talking about, the graphics cards, every time Marco holds them up, causes interference with his microphone. We're figuring out it's magnets, but this one doesn't do that. So we already like it more.
Right. Yes. So this is actually NVIDIA's answer to the 6990. It's slightly smaller, much quieter. For a dual GPU card, yeah, it's big. It's it's an 11-inch card, but NVIDIA really did a great job engineering this thing. It's very sleek. It's only a little bit louder than the GTX 580. Performance is killer. I mean, it has 2 full GF110 GPUs on it. So from a core standpoint, it's like having GTX 580 SLI on a single card. but the GPUs are clocked lower to keep power consumption in line. So you end up with performance that's somewhere in between GTX 570 SLI and GTX 580 SLI. It wins some tests against the 6990, loses others. But you're talking about killer, super high-end performance in a card that's actually pretty quiet and manageable from a heat standpoint. NVIDIA did a really nice job on this thing.
Now, is that thing trying to compete with the 6990 or not?
Yeah, it's NVIDIA's ultra high-end to compete with the 6990. Over the peak power spec, their card will draw more than 375 watts. So somebody that would buy a 6990 is going to need, a really good power supply. Going to really have to know what they're doing. And the 6990, it's bigger, it's louder. The NVIDIA card, the peak TDP is 365 watts, so 10 watts below the max for a card of this type. But they did a really great job engineering the coolers, and it's just literally just a notch louder than GTX 580, which was a quiet card. So dare we say this dual GPU solution is actually sort of elegant.
An elegant solution? Well, will gamers care about that, really? Considering it doesn't matter. You're going to be listening to your speakers. You're going to be listening to gunfire. You're going to see zombies being killed. Do you really care?
Right. Actually, well, that's actually perfect, because there's the rub. How do you pick, which card to buy? The performance is similar. It depends what games you're running. Similar power requirements. Do you care about having a quiet card, or you just want, the loudest, baddest killer thing possible? It's some gamers are going to care, some aren't. Some are going to buy AMD, some are going to buy NVIDIA. They're both really, really strong cards.
If you want relatively silent gaming, there's the iPad 2. I think you guys have a full review of that up, actually.
Oh, I feel dirty. I feel dirty segueing from the GTX 590 to the iPad 2.
Well, I didn't say it was comparable in performance by any means. I just said that it was quite a gaming experience.
Why do you feel dirty? Can't we all just get along? I mean, you need all kinds of different technology, don't you? You purist.
Marco, you can go take a shower while Dave and I talk about the iPad 2.
Yeah. I think he feels dirty for other reasons, but we won't go there. No. So the iPad 2, yeah, actually Paul Lilly has taken a look at it for us, and definitely an impressive effort for Apple to up the ante, if you will, when virtually all of the tablet manufacturers, competitive tablet manufacturers in the market, are racing to get their first generation device to store shelves, and Google, trying to provide an OS solution with Honeycomb. Apple's, got a second coming, and it's the real deal. It's taken the bar up a notch again for all of those other tablet manufacturers out there, and really just, with all the upgrades, whether you talk about the dual-core processor, dual-core 1 gig ARM-based A5 with its Power VR core, graphics core, you just got to hand it to Apple for pulling off yet another just impressive product.
Dave, you seem so full of love for the iPad 2. Is there actually any difference between the two? I mean, considering it's got a new processor, but it's got more RAM.
Yeah.
But is there something that's like, oh, you must buy it?
And that's, I guess, kind of the crux a lot of people come to us for. They want to understand, is this worth picking up over an iPad 1 if you've got an iPad 1 already, for example? And I guess the answer is, frankly, probably not. If you're already an iPad 1 owner, again, you've got the dual-core A5 with better graphics. I mean, and in some tests, this thing shows like 9x the graphics performance. You've got additional RAM. You've got a thinner, lighter device now. It's actually 15% lighter and thinner than an iPhone 4. So it's definitely sexier and sleeker. Front and rear-facing cameras now that you didn't have in the iPad 1. And so, the performance, is sort of secondary because, the creature comforts that we were missing in Apple's first generation iPad are now mostly there. Still would like some additional accessibility options that aren't there, like a flash card reader slot. I mean, come on.
Never gonna happen.
But yeah, so the answer is definitely a tablet to be reckoned with, especially with folks like, Motorola with their Zoom and all these other tablets coming to market. But do you need it over an iPad 1? That's up to you. It depends on how jacked up you are about the hardware and how much of an enthusiast you really are.
Well, let's talk about something completely different. Let's bring Marco's spirits back up. Let's talk about Samsung's see-through LCD prototype. Actually, I think I actually saw a bunch of AMOLED displays that were see-through back at CES in 2011. What do you know about the Samsung see-throughs?
So, I mean, it's kind of a similar concept. It's kind of funky what they used as a vehicle to show it off. They took a notebook. The rear panel's removed. It's going to be tough to visualize without coming by the site. So the panel, the lid behind the screen is basically gone, and light passing through the screen is the backlight. So in their notebook prototype, the story is without a backlight, you can have much better battery life. And depending what's being displayed on the screen, you could see right through it. Now, they also showed off a 42-inch, basically a window that you could see through. As a notebook, I kind of don't see the practical application. Maybe I don't have the creativity to think of a reason I'd want a see-through notebook. But the window idea is kind of cool. You can have it displaying different image outside or used for advertising purposes, touchscreens where you can see somebody coming from the other side, say in a mall environment, something like that. Just kind of a really funky prototype.
As a portable implementation, I've been thinking about this, actually. It'd be great for augmented reality, because you don't have to actually display the image. You can just hold it over stuff and add in extra figures. Plus,
didn't think of that.
Also, you could use your laptop by candlelight, which
there
is
you
so
go.
romantic.
See, that's why we have you here, for that different way of thinking. See, that's a great idea. I was also thinking like the smaller version might be cool, like one of our readers posts. It might be cool on like a refrigerator. Turn on the fridge backlight. You can see right into the fridge, see what you have, pull up a recipe, see if it's in your fridge without ever opening the door.
And I bet this part, parents will love it. What are you looking at?
Ah.
Good.
Yeah, the privacy thing isn't happening there, is it?
No. Let's talk about the big bad contest. You guys have, I don't know, thousands of dollars worth of gear that you're giving away. I don't know why exactly. You're just giving it away to people. Dave, why don't you tell the people what they could win this month?
Yeah, we actually rallied the troops for this one, and the good folks at NVIDIA, Main Gear Systems, Patriot Memory. Who am I leaving out? ASUS is in there, right?
Intel
is in there, of course. I mean, my God. The hardware available for this contest up for grabs is it's almost mind-boggling. So I'll go down the list. It is an Intel Core i7 2600K 3.4 gigahertz Sandy Bridge processor. Dual NVIDIA GeForce GTX 580s, okay? An Intel 510 SSD for the boot drive, 120 gig SSD. The list goes on. It's a Main Gear built system, so it's going to be in a Main Gear Shift chassis, which is just awesome. That's where the graphics cards go vertical. Oh, unbelievable. If you're a geek. And the ASUS monitor is a 3D 120 hertz panel, 23-inch 120 hertz panel. With so you're going to have NVIDIA's 3D Vision technology that's going to get bundled with this. So just impressive stuff. And up for grabs, you got to jump through a few hoops to do it. We're going to make you go to Facebook and a few other places. Come by the site. Not too many hoops, just a few. And check it out, and you could win.
That's right. Act like a trained SEAL, and you could win like $7,000 worth of gear. Something like that. It's a lot of money there. Don't forget, everything we talked about is on the site at HotHardware.com. There's lots of links. There's lots of stuff. You can find the contest that way, do that kind of thing. Or you can go around the web. You can go to Facebook.com/HotHardware, or you can go to Twitter.com/HotHardware, maybe even Dig.com/HotHardware, or maybe YouTube.com/HotHardwareVids, where you can see a video review of the iPad 2.
Yes.
That's Robert. And I think that's pretty much it for this week. Thanks for stopping by, and go win some gear.